I'll just sit over here, okay?
Okay, and shall I look right at the camera?
Yeah, actually, maybe I'll sit next to that.
Well, how come that camera's not facing you?
It is.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't see myself in it.
All right. So let's start by you telling us a little bit about your mom and dad.
Well, where they came from and all that?
Yeah.
They came from Europe, and my dad met my mother at his friend's place where he worked with him in the shop. And one day, John Matea invited my dad to dinner because he asked him, "Do you know any lady that I could marry? Because I came here and want to get married." He says, "Well, my sister-in-law lost her husband, who was murdered, and she's left with 3 children. But I don't think you'd be interested." He says, "No, I want to meet her." So they had him over to dinner. And the minute he laid eyes on her, he said, "That's my woman." He fell in love with her, and 6 months later, they were married. And later, about a year later, Elizabeth died. She was the oldest from my mother's first husband, you know. And they moved to Wisconsin. And my dad built a home there, and I was born. I was the last one born. There were 9 in our family, and I was the last. And most of the children were left for Chicago to work, to do the work, you know, and get send the money home and all that because they needed it. And then my mom died when I was 16, which was very sad. So I went to live with my sister Sarah. And I stayed there for 3 years until I married this wonderful man, Terry Taylor. And I became his wife. And from that, I got a beautiful son, Terry Jr. Is that enough?
Yeah. Okay, and what were your parents' names?
My parents' maiden name, or my mother's maiden name was Salamea, and my dad's was Felix Hahn.
Salamea was her last name?
Salamea Czech. That was her maiden name. Czech.
And which countries were they from?
Well, my dad came from, I think it was Germany and Austria. He was born and raised there, and my mother was born in Poland. And so actually the children are like Czechs and Polish, and a little German, a little bit of everything.
Did you ever meet your grandparents?
Even my sister Vicky, she's 5 years older than she was. When she was born, my grandmother died. And my grandmother died, she was 89 years old. She was a long time. But I know nothing of my grandfather or my dad's family. Nothing. Because he didn't say much.
You don't know what town he was from in Germany?
Austria, near Austria, and the German border, somewhere around there. And so apparently he was half German and half Austrian, and he learned how to speak Polish. My mother taught him how to speak Polish, because he spoke German a lot when he came to America. And from there, he learned how to speak pretty good. And he spoke English, and they got along real well. So he was a good husband and a good father. But he died when he was 70. He lived, 10 years longer than my mother. My mother died at 60. And he died at 70.
So you knew what was your grandmother's name on your mom's side?
God, I don't know. I really don't know. I think my mother told me, but I've forgotten. It's been a long time.
What was your dad like?
Well, he was a hard worker. He built his own home in Pulaski. He bought some land, and he moved to Pulaski with the family, and he built his own house, and it was pretty good. It was really, really modern. So he was a good builder. And he was ambitious. And I remember my mother had black, dark, I mean black hair and dark eyes, brown eyes, big, beautiful brown eyes. And he was just the opposite. He was blonde with blue eyes. And he fell in love with her. He says, "This is my woman."
What was your mom like?
Oh, she was so quiet. She didn't talk much. Hard worker. She was a sweetheart. Everybody loved her. Oh, she was such a great person. Everybody loved her. She wouldn't hurt a fly. She's so good. Hard worker.
How did they make a living?
Well, let's see. My dad would go every winter to be a lumberjack, work up by the, where they'd make lumber, these posts for telephones and all that. He worked for them. And during the summer, he would have a garden, and he would sell vegetables and stuff, and took it to the town, and he would get money for it. And that's how we lived. And we lived off the garden, because we had a big, big garden. We had everything, vegetables and fruit and whatever you have. We had 2 cows and a horse. So we got the milk from the cows, and my dad raised chickens, geese, rabbits, and all kinds of goodies, you know. So we used to eat rabbit meat and chickens, a lot of chickens. My mom made the most delicious chicken soup, homemade noodles, and it was so delicious. And she baked bread every day, and the bread was like a dessert for us. We made our own butter, we churned our own butter, so the butter and the bread together, it was just like a really tasty. So.
And how about your brothers and sisters?
How many did I have?
Yeah, and could you tell me a little about each one of them?
Well, the oldest one was Sarah. She was firstborn. My mother's second husband, firstborn, Sarah. When she didn't graduate school, because she had to go to work, she flew to Chicago to get her job. She got a job, and she stayed at my aunt Veronica's place. You know, she had a home. And she met this person, Joe Ehrman. Shortly after that, she married him, and she had 2 children, Joseph and Celeste. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot her name. Geraldine and Joseph. They had 2 children, and that was it. And Geraldine married Demodica, and shortly, he was pretty young when he died of a heart attack, and he left 3 small boys. So she really had a job, and she fought. It was very hard for her to raise them, but she raised them right. They turned out to be real good men. Now they're men. They're in their 40s. And Geraldine and Joe married Arlene Ehrman. Ehrman, his name was Ehrman, but he married Arlene. I don't know her last name, her maiden name. And they had, how many children did they have? Joey, Johnny, Jolene, and Jackie. And everyone spelled with J because they decided the reason they wanted to name them those names is because Joe started with a J, so they wanted something like with the J. So it was Jolene, Johnny, Jackie, and Jolene, Johnny, Jackie, and what was the other one? Joey.
That's okay. What about Aunt Sarah, though? Maybe you could tell me a little bit more about your relationship with her.
Well, I worked for her for almost 3.5 years, taking care of her children. I came from Wisconsin after my mother died when I was 16, and they took me to, I flew, I should say, to Chicago, and I stayed with her, and I did take care of her kids, and I did a lot of work for her. I cleaned and did everything for her. And then I said, the first man I ever meet, I'll marry, and I met Terry. I married him. But Sarah and I weren't really too close, because she was so much older than I. and she worked most of the time, so we weren't very close. And actually, the only closest one I was with Sophie, and she was, in fact, she had a son by the name of Conrad. I don't know if you ever met Conrad. Well, he's a real nice guy. He lives in California now. And he's got a family, nice family. But then she died of tuberculosis when she was 28 years old. So that was very sad. She got that TB from her girlfriend. That the girlfriend's mother said to her, "You have a cold, you have a cold," and she's been coughing and coughing all the time. And it didn't sound like a cold, but she had tuberculosis, and she played the piano, and she would sing, and my sister Sophie would sit next to her, and she got the TB from her. And then there's Walter. Walter died at an early age. He was 28. And, but you know, Mark, I have everything written in the family tree, but I'm telling you that now.
I know. But what was Conrad's name, last name?
Rhinus.
How do you spell that?
Reinis.
And he had Victoria too, right? Vicky?
Victoria. And she married Jimmy in Reno. She met him at a dance, and he got so possessive. He was Italian, and he really went after her. He says, "I don't want you to even look at another man." So anyway, she married him, and she had 4 kids. There's Bobby, and Johnny, and Jerry, and Celeste. 1 girl and 3 boys. And they came out pretty good because her husband had a business, you know, and he did quite well with it. She had everything she wanted. She had a good life.
What type of business?
Tavern business. And he really was good at it. So she got a new car every year. She had a maid. She had a good life. She died. She was going to just be 90 within a month. She died, and my sister Sarah was 91 when she died. But my other sister was very young when she got that tuberculosis of that lady. And,
Describe Sophie. Did she have blonde hair like you, or?
she was blonde, and she was beautiful. I would say Vicky was the prettiest. Second to Vicky, I think Sophie was. You know, she had big, beautiful blue eyes, natural blonde. She had the cutest nose you ever could see. Dimples, beautiful dimples, and teeth were like pearls. White, she was just so beautiful. And it's a shame how she had to look so young. She had to die. And she was about 5'1". She wasn't very tall. But Vicky could have crashed the movies. She had like the most beautiful shape, you know what I mean? It's like Marilyn Monroe. She looked something like that. Marilyn Monroe. She was in that category, in it. Her shape and her looks and everything. But she wanted to be a dancer. But she met Jimmy, and Jimmy says, "Like heck, you're going to be a dancer. You're going to marry me." So he kept her pregnant every little while.
So were those all your brothers and sisters?
Well, there's Sarah. Well, I'm not counting my half brothers. Sorry, I cut my head. But first it was Elizabeth that died young. She was only 3 months old. She died of diphtheria. There was no cure at that time. It was a long time ago. Then there was Andrew and Joe. Gender. Those were the gender of them. Then her husband was murdered, you know, and she was left with three small children.
What was his name?
The one that was murdered? Joe, what was his name? I think John. I'm not too sure now, because she didn't talk much about her first husband.
And how do you spell that? General.
Jendral, General. Anyway, so then when she married my dad, they had 6 more children after that was Sarah, Walter, Sophie, Stanley, Victoria, and myself. There were 6 of us. So actually, my mother had 9 children. And she was such a petite little thing, so tiny and fragile, and I don't know how she could ever have so many children on a farm. It was pretty hard work, but she managed. She was a real toughie, but she was so good, so like an angel. Everybody called her an angel. They said, if Mrs. Hahn is going to die, she should go to heaven, because that's where she belonged. That's how much she thought about her. And all of us kids got that nature from her, you know, that easygoing nature. My dad was like that too. He was quiet, real nice man. Nice dad. He never spanked us, because we were never bad. We were always good. Oh, God. So that's the Hans and the Generals. You see, one of them died of the General. That's Henrietta. She was the oldest. And then there was Bob, Henrietta. Bob died. He drowned in Crockle, Wisconsin. He went swimming and he drowned.
Was that your mother's child?
Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah, right. And anyway, there was Henrietta, Eugene, Alice, Dorothy, and the one that drowned. They had 5 children. That was my mother's grandchildren, not her child. That was her grandchildren, my mother's grandchildren.
Okay, what about Stan?
Well, he left Wisconsin when he was about 22, 23 years old.
He was your brother, right?
That was my brother, and he went to Chicago. He got a job, and he met Estelle, and he married her, and they had 4 boys, which were Richard is the oldest, and Bob, and then was Stan, and then was Ronnie. Stanley died not too long ago, about 2 months ago, something like that. He died of a heart attack. He was so young. He was only 15 years old when he died. And Richard is in Atlanta, Georgia. Robert just bought a place in Pulaski, Wisconsin. Ronnie has already a home in Wisconsin. He lives there. So.
Now, you also had a best friend back in Pulaski, right?
Oh yeah, Agnes. In fact, we had a family reunion, plus we had like a memorial for Stan. And that was about a month ago that they picked me up and I drove there. It's about 200 miles from here, from Illinois to Wisconsin. And they had 35 people there. They had music, they had the loudspeakers going, they had all kinds of food. And I celebrated my birthday. They had baked a big, beautiful cake, heart-shaped, with candles, and oh my goodness, we had a great time. And Agnes was invited. Her mother was my godmother, and we went to school together. We were friends ever since I can remember. So she came with her daughter and her daughter's husband. So they came in about like 3 in the afternoon. It was on a Sunday, and they stayed till about 11:30 in the evening. So they were having a good time. And her husband died of about a year ago. Agnes Carnes, her name was.
And those were your neighbors too?
Well, they lived in Pulaski, in town, but we had a farm. It was a mile and a quarter away from there. But every day she would bring her little red wagon. She'd pull her red wagon with all the goodies. Her mom used to bake cakes and and Chris' mother was my godmother. She would sew a dress for me, and I would run upstairs in my attic there and watch for her to see, and look at the road, and there she was coming with a little red wagon. It was so cute. And we're still great friends. We were really great friends. So that, her mother over the other one, well, she was adopted, because her mother couldn't have children, so she was adopted by her uncle, Mike Dombrowski, his name was. And she lives in Green Bay now, and she has her children there. She had 3 children. There's Edward, and then there's Ronnie, and then there's Darlene. She had 3 children. 2 boys and a girl.
And who were your neighbors up in Pulaski?
Well, there are Rich Guskys, just across, and Butzkevich, which was not too far from our house, on Chase Road, was east of our house. And, gee whiz. One more, I can't remember the last name. Wolfowski, I think it was Wolfowski. They're all mostly Polish people in there. And, but you know, they were spread apart, like maybe 1 mile, 2 miles away. And I have an uncle, Chuck, that lived about 1.5 miles away from our house. That was my mother's brother. My mother had 2 brothers and a sister. And their name were Czechs. So there's Martin Czech, you know, remember Sue Czech? That was her dad. So there's Martin Czech and Peter Czech and Mary, that was, let's see, how was it? That was my mother's 2 brothers and a sister. Sister was Mary, and there was John and Martin. And
Okay. So you went to school in Pulaski, right?
oh yeah, 8th grade. I graduated from school.
What was school like?
Well, they had all nuns, and they were so mean to boys. They didn't like boys, no matter how good they were. They had something against them. Maybe they became nuns. Is that why? I don't know. but the boys had to really walk a straight line. Otherwise, they were so strict with them. And there must have been about like 20 people in one classroom. That was not a big school. They had from 1st grade to 8th, and the 1st grade, must have been about 5 or 6, that's all. Because at the time, there weren't too many people living around Pulaski, you know. So anyway, my dad, in wintertime, he would get the sleigh and the wagon, and he would take the sleigh and the horse, and he would take me to school in the wintertime and bundle me up with blankets so I wouldn't freeze. And I was so young, and I would cry. I said, I want to go home. I miss my mommy and my daddy. And they said, no, you got to go to school. You got to learn. So that was my, and the teachers, the nuns were pretty good to us girls anyway. So, let's see. I'll never forget when my girlfriend Agnes and her mother, she was chaperone. We used to go dancing. We were about like 10, 11, and 12 years old, something like that. So my girlfriend, she slipped and she fell right over me. And I couldn't get from under her because she was kind of heavy, you know. And her mother ran, she says, is she okay? Is she okay? It was on a dance floor. So I was a dancer since I was about 8, 9, 10 years old. And I used to do the Polish hop. Whoa, wow, were we good at it. We really danced the Polish hop. Did you ever see people dancing Polish hop? That was really fun.
And so when you graduated in 8th grade, did you have an option to go to 9th grade? Was there a school for 9th graders?
They had high school there, But as I turned, I must have been around 16. That was pretty old to graduate, wasn't it? 16 years old from high school, but I think I started school when I was much older. I don't know how old I was when I started school, but when my mother died, I couldn't go to high school anymore because I had to go to Chicago. They took me there, and I had to take care of my sister's kids.
Who took care of your dad?
Oh, he was alone. We wanted to bring him to Chicago. He didn't want to come. He said, I want to stay here on my farm, because they had a little farm, not much, you know. And my little dog named Footpet. The dog's name was Footpet. He said, my dog and I, we're going to get along fine. He did well up until about the 7th year. He lived 10 years after my mother died. We came to visit him every year, and we cleaned his house and bought food and everything and gave money. And he got to a point where he got sick, but he didn't want to tell anybody that he was sick. He didn't eat good. So the neighbor wrote a letter to my brother's family and said, you better come and get your dad. Because he is really sick. He's not feeling well. So sure enough, they went and they brought him to Chicago. And I think he was staying at Stan's house for about a month and he died. And he died of cirrhosis of the liver, and he never drank. You think you get that from drinking? No. Cirrhosis of the liver, they said you usually get that from drinking, but he never drank.
Was your dad Catholic?
Yeah, but you know, he didn't believe in the priests. He said, I believe in God, there's only one God, and God is everywhere. And I really don't have to go to church because I don't trust the priests. And that was true. Because I'll tell you, I don't know if you want to hear this, I should say this. My sister Vicky, I told you she was so pretty. And I was on stage, that was, I think, in my 2nd grade. I performed, I had a few words to say, and I was on stage, and my sister walked me to the school, to the stadium, you know. And she sat in the back, all the way in the back. And a priest, a young, real handsome priest came and sat next to her and said, you mind if I sit next to you? She says, no, Father. And then, like after a while, just before we went home, he said to her, you know, you're so beautiful. I wonder if you could go out with me. I'll take you out to dinner or something. I can't, he says, I just can't, don't say no. And when she heard that he made a date with her, she ran away and she told my mother about it. And my mom says, I don't believe you. You're lying. Priests are like gods. I look up to them like they're gods. And she believes in priests like you. I told you my sister Sarah had a beauty shop with her. She had opened up her own beauty shop, and she sent $5 every week for taxes and for us kids to have clothes, you know, and all that. You know what my mom did? She took that $5 and she took it to the church, to the priest. And we were without clothes. We didn't have the clothes we should have had for the food. And my dad kept saying, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to do that. Don't do it. If you need the money, oh no, God will provide. If I give them the money, then we'll get tenfold. We'll get so much more. So that's how she was. She believed in them. She wouldn't believe what my sister said. And I saw that priest. He was a young man, very, very handsome. So he wanted to take her out. And she got scared and she ran away. So see, I mean, when you hear about the priests nowadays, it's all coming out in the wash. How they used to take these young men and the young boys. They had sex with them or whatever. And now everything was quiet. Hush, hush, hush. And now it's all coming out in the wash.
And what about your relationship with God?
I believe in God 100%. Because I'll tell you what, Mark, I prayed for things that actually came what I prayed for. And I believe in God 100%. Because I do know my prayers were answered. Even now, I pray every night. And people that were sick, I prayed so hard for your dad to stop smoking. that's one thing that I didn't get an answer, but he's still smoking. But Franny and Reno, that John's wife, she smoked when she was a young girl, and she said, "I can't stop, I can't stop." She had a dinner there one time, and she coughed and coughed, and I said to her, "You better stop smoking." And she said, "Yeah, everybody tells me that I won't live long because I'm smoking too much." So I went down and I started praying so hard that she stops. So one day, Johnny called me. He says, "Guess what, Aunt Vern? I got good news. Franny stopped smoking." I says, "You're kidding." He says, "I would never, ever think that she would ever stop because she was so hooked on it." And I said, "My prayers have helped." And I prayed for Helene. For one time she was really bad. And she was falling and everything, and I prayed so hard for her. And I talked to her, and then she says, "You know, I don't know what it is. I'm feeling better. I'm not falling like I used to, and I feel much better." And it's my prayers that are being answered. And I pray for you guys so you have a good job, so you're secure, and you have the health and the prosperity and happiness. And I'm praying, please, God, let Mark find a nice woman so he can marry her and she'd be the best of wife. Somewhere she's waiting for him, I know. She's there, and you're going to be very, very happy. That it will be, maybe not for a while yet, but it's coming. So you let me know.
What was the happiest time of your life?
Well, there are several. The happiest time when my son had 2 children, really. I said, because I always said, I hope that he can have, children, because a lot of men cannot have children. I said, well, I hope that. And when you were born, and when Teresa was born, I was so happy. I think that was the best. And you know what? I was so happy when I seen you come in that door. This time that you're here. When I thought that you were gone, oh my God, that was the happiest. I can't explain how happy I was. I was so relieved, like something just took. I was like the drain on you, like of this fear. And I was very. I'm so just to know that you're okay.
Tell me about your son.
Terry? Well, I'll tell you. It's very sad because I couldn't spend much time with him, and his father didn't either. I mean, not his first father never really cared, but Bob cared about him. But he more or less worked, and he didn't see us. He came home late. My son was sleeping already. When he left, my son left. My husband left before he even got up. He was always working, and I worked too. I'd come home, and he'd be home from school, and I'd make supper, and we would go over his schooling, his books and stuff. And then, before you know it, he was drafted, and then I didn't see him for about 3 years, he was away. And then, before you know it, he found Arloa, and he got married, and then they took off. So actually, in my lifetime, I didn't spend much time with them, which I regret. But I had to work. He had to pay bills. He had to work, and he had boyfriends. He had boyfriends come to the house, and they played games, and he enjoyed himself that way. But no, he was more or less on his own for a long time. It's sad to say. So I say, when you have kids, try to spend prime time with them, because they grow up too fast, and before you know it, they're gone. That's it, and then you're sorry. But he gave me a lot of joy. I was so happy when I had him, and then when I was told I couldn't have any more children, I felt so sad. I cried and everything. And he says, "Mommy, why can't I have a brother or sister?" I says, "Well, I'm sorry, but we can't have any more children." "But why?" And I couldn't tell him I had hysterectomy, that it was so important that I had, otherwise I would have had cancer. So they performed complete hysterectomy and I couldn't have any more children. So I was in the hospital when they performed my hysterectomy. I cried, and the priest was going down the aisle. He saw me crying and he said, "What's the matter? What's the matter? Tell me." I says, "I had hysterectomy and I can't have any more children." And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." And he said, "Maybe it was meant to be." And, he tried to console me and talk to me. And I felt a little bit better, but I could never, because Terry wanted a brother and sister so bad. He says, "Mommy, I want a brother." And he cried, "I want a brother." And then when he got older, I says, "Maybe you understand why I couldn't have it. I had that hysterectomy." And he says, "What's that?" I says, "Well, they operate on you. They take the womb out, they take everything out." And he says, "Oh." He says, "That's why I couldn't have a brother or sister." I said, "That's right." But I says, "When you were young, you wouldn't understand." And that's why he had two of you. They wanted more. He wanted, your mother wanted to get pregnant again. But then she got sick. But sometimes, like your dad tells me now, when he comes here, sometimes we talk, and he says, "Maybe, Mom, I was pretty, I think it happened for the best that I didn't have a brother or sister." I says, "Why?" He says, "Because they probably would be my enemy. They probably, we wouldn't get along." And I says, "Oh, I don't know that. I know you and Teresa are real close. And I know she loves you very much." He tells me, "Oh, man." He says, "Oh, my only brother I have. Would you like to have a brother or sister?" See, okay, that's good. That's a good attitude. But he wanted one so bad. I said, "But I'm sorry." And he kept saying, "Why?" I said, "Well, gee, you wouldn't understand." And he was so young. But later, when he got older, he said, "Oh, yeah, okay, Mom."
How'd you feel when they went to Vietnam?
Oh, God. I didn't sleep for nights. I felt very, very bad. I said, "My only child, oh God in heaven, if anything happens to him, I'll die." I just, that was my saddest time, really, when he was drafted. But I got letters from him. He sent so many letters and telling me how he was, and I wrote back, and I would send cookies, and I would send this and that for him, and we kept in touch, but it was really sad.
Were you proud of him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he would, I'll tell you something, Mark. He was good from the day that I conceived him, that I had him. He was such a good baby. He never cried at night. I'd feed him, and he'd sleep through the night, and I would get up, and I looked in his crib, and I'd look at him, and he'd look at me, and he'd grin. Like, "Good morning, Mommy." It was the cutest smile, and he was so fat. He was chubby, really chubby. I said, "Eat, eat, eat," like I tell you, eat, eat. And he never was in trouble. But one thing, I never knew that he started smoking. And he kept that a secret. Because he knew that I wouldn't like it, and he got hooked on it. I never knew he smoked until, I don't know, sometime a little later when and he did smoke in the service. So that was bad, real bad. And I thought, oh my God, what can I do? I did everything. I prayed. I said masses for him. And nothing seemed to help. And then he met I'll never forget when he met, well, he was in the service then, when he met your mom, because that's where they met, in the service. One day he says to me, he looked at me, he says, "Mom, I'm very serious about a girl that I met." I said, "Oh, you are?" I says, "Good." I says, "Where is she? Where she live? You're wanting to know everything about her." "Well, I met her in the service, and is it all right if I bring her to dinner?" I think it was the following Sunday. And I said, "Sure, I want to meet her." And I made a real good dinner, and there he comes with your mom. I looked at her, and I fell in love with her right away. She had the cutest smile. She ran to me, put her arms around me, and squeezed me, and my love just, I says, Lulu, I love you. I just loved her from the very beginning. I says, oh, Terry, you are so lucky to get her. You made the right choice. You really love her? I do. He says, you love her as much as I love her. I says, well, we both love her. and then she used to say, Mommy, I love you. Oh, God, I love that. I love that. I don't know why. Oh, but the worst time of my life is when I found out she was sick. And when they went to Washington, and when I heard how hard it was for your dad, how he struggled, he never told me, though later I found out he went to a cornfield to get some corn for you guys to have supper because he had nothing, he didn't have a penny to his name. He had no place. Oh, now that was the worst time of my life. That was, I can't explain. And I kept saying, come, please, please come back. I'll give you the money to fly back. Bring your children here. And I says, you take over the house. You got the house. It's yours, please. Well, Lulu doesn't want to come. She doesn't want to leave the family. And I says, what family? They don't give a damn about, excuse my language, but they don't care about her. Didn't talk to her and all that. And Bobby gave her a hard time. And that's why she got MS. It all went through her head, and that brain couldn't take it because there's too many disappointments. And how her mother disappointed her, I don't know how could anybody, a mother be so mean, so cruel to her own kids. I don't understand that. Even her own grandchildren. Like I say, God forgive her because she was not good person, but God knows. Only God knows. That was the worst time of my life.
Now, let's change the subject to something not so sad. You had a place in Florida?
Yeah, oh, I'm going to tell you about all the buildings. Well, first of all, when my husband died, we had a 5-apartment building in Chicago on Central Avenue. He bought that from his boss who used to work on building. And he really did wrong for him because he wanted to get rid of it because it had violations. And we never knew that it had violations. Like they had, this had 5 apartments. So this guy was a builder, so he applied two apartments in the back of the building. And as far as it was against the law in that vicinity, in that neighborhood. You could have more than 3 apartment buildings. If you have more than that, they penalize you or they make you remove the other 2 away from that. That was the zoning. Couldn't have more than 3 apartments. So he sold it to my stupid husband, and he believed him. He bought it. We borrowed money for down payment. That's all we did is make loans on top of loans on top of loans with him. So we made a loan on that house. There were white people at the time. And at first, I think in 3 years, it was going pretty good. We got our rent on time. And then, when my husband died, he never told me anything about it, how to run it, or what's going on over there. The blacks are coming on. The blacks are moving in. And I couldn't get, when he died, I couldn't get rent from them. I would run to Chicago every while, back and forth. I couldn't get any money. I remember that one lady downstairs, I didn't get rent for 3 months, and I had to pay my mortgage on the house. They're going to repossess the house. And I had no money. So I went down there and I knocked at the door, and a big fat black guy came and he says, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, this lady didn't pay rent for 3 months now." "Get the hell out of here," he said, "before I kill you." So I took off, and he was so mean. So I went to the lawyer downtown, and I said, these people aren't paying rent. He says, "We're going to evict them." But he says, "You expect them to burn the house down or kill you or something, because that's the way they work it." You know, if they can't have their way, they're gonna really hurt you. But let's do it. So he evicted them. They threw the furniture on the lawn. And luckily, she picked up the furniture and they took off. So they didn't bother me. So here I'm looking for another tenant. And I had to have all blacks. Because whites didn't want to move in. Because they were all of a sudden like, they came from the ground. They were just coming, like I never knew that they would be around there that much. And most of them were late, a month, 2 months late. And I'm trying to struggle to pay this mortgage and telling him I'll give you half and then half next month. And oh, Mark, you don't know what I went through. So finally, I said, the lawyer said, you know what? You'll never sell this house. Because I said, I'm going to sell it. I can't manage it anymore. I can't afford it. And he says, you got to delete the 2 apartments from the back because the zoning is only for 3, not 5. He said, didn't your husband know that when he bought it, that was against the law, against the... And I said, no, I didn't know anything. He never talked to me about it. He said, you got it. So what I do, I made another loan with Harris. You should see the loans I had all over. To get the guys to delete the apartment. He had to knock everything down. Pipes. And leave the 3 apartments. Well, by that time, I had more bills than you could ever think. And I thought, all right, I'll sell the house now, pay off the bill. And I made all these loans. So, what happened? I couldn't get a white person to buy it because they wouldn't buy it because they're blacks. And blacks didn't have any money. So I had a tenant that moved upstairs, and he was working on a railroad, and he was an elderly man. And I said, would you consider buying this place? I said, I'll give it to you reasonable, just to get rid of it. He says, sure. He says, I'll buy it from you. He bought it, and I paid some of the... I couldn't pay all of the bills because I didn't have enough. And I still owed some, so I had to have 2 jobs to make ends meet, to pay for this apartment, for this house. I had to make payments, and that. In the meantime, I was working at Ampex, and the company was moving to Wisconsin, and not Wisconsin, California. They wanted me to go with them. So I said I couldn't, you know, because I had a house here and all that. So they said, okay, I'll give you a severance pay. And I worked there for 9 years, and guess how much I got severance pay? You never believe it. $2,500 for 9 years of working there. In the meantime, my stepdaughter called from Florida. That's Bob's daughter, you know. And says, oh, you know, she says, I have a house here that's in Florida that's really reasonable. She was in real estate at the time. And they only want $17,000. It's a corner house, it's beautiful, it's this and that. And I said, how much do they want? And she says, $2,500. And I said, that's just what I got for severance pay from MPEX. So I went and I put, my husband was dead already then, he died. I flew my sister Vicky, and I bought the house and I rented it. And I says, oh wow, all white people, they're real nice. I rented a real nice couple. And they paid rent on time, they kept the place beautiful, they cut the grass. I was so happy. And all of a sudden I get a letter and they're telling me, we bought a house and that we want to own our own home. So we'll have to move. And I said, oh my God. I said, now I gotta look for another apartment. Here I am, and I have to look for another tenant to rent that house. And so I called my stepdaughter and I said, listen, Rita, I says, find somebody to rent that house because these people are buying their own home. And she says, well, okay. So she finally got 2 guys that were going to college. And she says, oh, I got 2 men that they're really clean and they're going to take good care of your house. Guess what? They paid me rent 2 months, and after that, no more. And I called her and I said, what's wrong? She didn't pay me rent. I would have to pay my mortgage on that house. Because I got no down money, just the money, the mortgage money that I had to pay him back, you know. She says, uh, well, and I said, I have to go fly down there and see what's going on. When I arrived, the front of the house, beer cans, old furniture. I walked in the house. They had a big dog. He made holes in the walls. The carpet was all chewed up. Here I have no money, nothing to repair it with. What do? Come back to Chicago, make some more loans. You don't know how many loans I went through. I says, well, I got to move them out again. I got to evict them, and I did. So I said, I put an ad in the paper, and I told Rita, I'm selling the house. I can't maintain it. I can't take care of it anymore. So she found somebody that bought the house, but they said, hey, we're not going to give you much money because we got to put new walls, new carpeting, and we revised everything. So if I got $3,000, I think I was lucky. I think it was around $3,000 that I got net. So I take that $3,000 and I pay some of the bills. So there's money lost. There's money lost in my apartment. Everything I touched turned to you know what. And then when I bought the place in Pulaski, that was my dad's, you know, and my brother, Stanley. I don't know if I told you this story there. No. See, he was in a car accident, and he lost one eye. And he, to save his nephew, his son, he went, Ronnie, you know, Ronnie was the baby. He put his body over him when the guy in the back was drunk, and he knocked him in the back, and the car turned over. And my brother tried to protect him, so he lost an eye with that accident. And when that happened, he says, I can't run because he got that far from my dad. And the kids always went there every summer for vacation, Busha and Jaja, you know. They took the kids for years and years. That's why they loved that place so much. And that little cottage in the back. And that's where they were raised and born, really actually raised. The kids were there all their lives. And they love it, you know. Anyway, Busha and Jaja raised them. And my daughter, my sister-in-law, and my brother worked steady, and they had good jobs. But anyway, what happened is my brother lost that eye, and he said, I want to sell the house. The farm, I'm going to sell everything. I can't drive no more. I only got that one eye, I can't do it. The neighbor next door, he came one summer, and my brother says, Vern, pick me up and drive me to Pulaski, and I'll see if I can sell the house. So the neighbor next door said, well, you want to sell your farm? How much do you want? And he says, give me $1,000. 5 acres of land, plus 2 homes. The one house in front was dilapidated. It needed a lot of work. And the little cottage in the back, $1,000. And Frank said, the neighbor, oh, Stan, let's go get a lawyer right now. I'll give you $1,000 right now. I'll give you $1,000. I got all excited. And my brother said, well, I got all the papers and stuff in Chicago. When I get back there, my wife will sign and we'll send. All right. On the way coming back, I drove him coming back from Wisconsin. I said, listen, Stan, I'm buying that place. For $1,000, I can afford it. And he said, to you it's $2,000.